What is up, NFL fans? Welcome back to another episode of the NFL Whip Round. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Coach Kevin Smith. It's a day late, but we had to wait. Can't have a podcast on the morning of free agency. What's up, Coach?
Yeah, that's like doing a Christmas show before you open up the presents, right? What's under the tree?
Exactly.
Gotta figure it out.
Well, for a lot of NFL teams, there was a lot of players underneath their tree. As it just seems like every year the contracts get bigger, the deals get larger, and there's always those moves that make you just scratch your head and say, really? Maybe it's someone didn't get what you expected. Maybe it's someone got more than you expected. Every year we have that. So real quick, Coach, let's start off with, so far, this is only day one. There's been some minor moves on day two when we're recording. What have been some of the best and worst deals that you've seen so far?
Well, I don't know if I can call this a best or a worst deal. I'm just going to react to it. Tyler Linderbaum's contract that Vegas handed out is a massive deal. $27 million per season to a center. It's $9 million more annually than the next highest paid center in the NFL. So think about that. Creed Humphrey is getting $18 million a year. And Vegas, I'm not a math major or anything, but they gave him 50% more than that. They gave him $27 million per year. And I think part of it was because they didn't want Baltimore to have any chance to match the offer, right? So, and the other part is Vegas had $110 million in cap space, the most of any team in the league heading into free agency. And they were unbelievably aggressive. Here's a quick list of some guys. Vegas signed Linderbaum, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Kwity Paye, Eric Stokes, Jalen Naylor. They had $110 million, and they went and said, we're going to spend it. And I thought it was interesting, by so overpaying Linderbaum, they guaranteed that they would get him because Baltimore wasn't going to match that deal. So ultimately, it seems like a crazy overpay on the surface, but at the same time, you just locked down a top 3 center in the NFL to pair with Fernando Mendoza. And I think that's a really smart strategy on their part.
Now, did you hear that the Ravens offered a similar deal, but it was spread out over 4 years? And so the annual pay was significantly higher with the Raiders, and that's why he obviously took that deal.
Yep.
Do you think a center is worth that much money, though?
It's a great question. From a coaching standpoint, yes. I really value centers because they're responsible for getting everybody lined up, making the protection calls, adjustments at the line of scrimmage. I remember Zach Frazier, Pittsburgh center, seeing an interview with him one time, and he said, they asked him, what's the biggest responsibility of the center? And he said, making sure everybody else is on the same page. So if you don't have a great communicator there, then that's a problem. I think they really wanted to ensure that Mendoza would have a guy who he could lean on. They can take now calling protections off his plate. Some teams will let the center do it. Other teams will let the quarterback do it. He doesn't have to master that part of the game out of the gate right now. Eventually he'll probably take that over, but having a guy like Linderbaum gives him a little bit less he has to do. And it's like a security blanket. It's like a battery in baseball, the catcher and the pitcher. And you obviously a great catcher helps your pitchers tremendously. I think they see the same thing here with Linderbaum and Mendoza.
So would you say that the Linderbaum and the Raiders were, I hate to say winners after day one, but did you like what they did? Because we know from past experience, just go back to the early 2000 Washington Redskins. Spending money does not necessarily mean it's being spent wisely. They spent a lot of money, and those players rarely ever panned out. So did you like overall what the Raiders did?
It's a volume approach for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some big names in there. Dean and Walker and Paye and Stokes, those guys were all, even Jalen Naylor, they were higher up draft picks. And so if you're getting guys that were fairly high draft picks in free agency, it usually means one of two things. Either they've played phenomenally and they're going to break the bank like Linderbaum, or they haven't maybe lived up to expectations and their respective teams are kind of willing to let them walk. I know that's the truth with Nakobe Dean in Philly. That Philly would have liked him back, but they don't, he's had some injuries and they don't necessarily know if he's totally played up to his draft slot. And they got a guy, Jihad Campbell, who they can take over for him, and they were kind of willing to let him walk. So that's where it gets interesting. Is that more like, hey, Nakobe Dean's a good football player who Philly just didn't think was going to be worth the money and had a plan B in place? Or is he a guy that just ultimately is not going to live up to his billing? I think that's what you have to find out now.
Okay, what other team surprised you, disappointed you in free agency in day one?
Well, I think if you look at, we're just talking about the Eagles, if you look at them, they lost 3 big-time players. I mean, Dean, again, a high draft pick. Jalen Phillips, a big free agent signing who gave them a presence coming off the edge. Reed Blankenship, an underrated sort of glue guy, part of that secondary. That's been a huge part of their success over the last couple of years. They've lost a lot of pieces on defense the last 2 years. They also lost their defensive pass game coordinator, Christian Phillips, who's now the DC in Dallas. And so the Eagles are going to have to figure out how they want to put that defense back together. It's really been the cornerstone of their success over the last several years. And yeah, I'm not saying that they can't. It's just that they now have that challenge in front of them.
Yeah, everyone says this is Howie Roseman season because he typically knows what he's doing. But at some point, you're going to lose some players. Would you agree or disagree with that? I mean, there's no way to keep everyone together anymore.
No. And if you're obviously a successful franchise like Philadelphia, you're going to get poached. I think we're seeing some of that with the Ravens. You look at what the Ravens lost yesterday or Monday. They lost Linderbaum. They lost two of their top 2 tight ends, Isaiah Likely, or 2 of the top 3, I should say.
Right.
Charlie Kohler. They lost Draymond Jones, a starter on defense. They lost a couple secondary pieces. I mean, they lost 7 players. And yeah, they go get Max Crosby, which is obviously huge, but it cost them 2 first-round picks to do it. So it'll be very interesting to see if Baltimore can restock the cupboard.
Let me ask you this question, and we'll come back to free agency for sure. But do you feel like some of the moves on Monday, some of the biggest moves were not free agent signings, but more so players that maybe were released, players that are going to be signing with a new team? I'm thinking about your buddy Kevin Stefanski down in Atlanta, who is reportedly going to bring in Tua. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a good fit for Atlanta because look at Tua and look at Michael Penix. They're complementary quarterbacks. They have similar skill sets, similar styles of play. Tua and Penix also remind me a little bit of Dylan Gabriel in Cleveland, not just because they're all left-handed, but because they're rhythm and timing passers. Kevin Stefanski likes to get the ball out quickly, likes to use multiple tight ends. So I think there's a lot of carryover from what he and his OC Tommy Rees were doing in Cleveland and what they're going to do in Atlanta. And if you think about it, Tua is a no-brainer for them. Yeah, I mean, you need a veteran to push Penix. He hasn't exactly locked down the starting job there. You get Tua on the veteran minimum. He's going to play in Atlanta this year for $1.3 million. That's nothing. And it's a prove-it deal. Hey, maybe he lights it up. Maybe he beats out Michael Penix. But if he doesn't and Penix becomes your franchise guy, you move on from Tua in a year for virtually no cost.
What did you think about the Indianapolis Colts and their decision to give Alec Pierce a really big contract and then follow that up by trading Michael Pittman to Pittsburgh, who then renegotiated his deal and got him a new 3-year contract? What did you think about what the Colts did?
I mean, I like what they did with Pierce, locking him up at a relatively reasonable deal. I think he's going to get about $29 million per season, which if you look at the going rate for true number 1 receivers in the NFL this year, it's closer to $40 million a year now. You're getting guys, the Jamar Chases and those guys. Now Pierce is probably in the next echelon. So to get him in the neighborhood of $30 million per year is a good deal. I mean, this guy led the NFL in yards per catch the last 2 years. He's averaged over 20 yards per catch 2 years in a row. That's significant. But what shocked me was they just gave Michael Pittman away. I mean, they swapped a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick with the Steelers, and that's it. And then Pittsburgh had to now re-sign Pittman or sign him to a contract extension, which they did. But I mean, that was basically like a salary dump. I was really surprised that they couldn't get more for Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman over the last 5 years, here's what he's averaged a season: 89 catches, 950 yards, 5 touchdowns per season. That's his average over the last 5 years. And all you got in return for that was a late round pick swap. That surprised me.
How do you think he fits with Pittsburgh in the offense with DK Metcalf?
Perfect. It's a great fit with DK Metcalf. I mean, because think about it, he's big, he's 6'4".
Yep.
And he's a true route runner and possession receiver, which the Steelers, they didn't have any great route runners in their offense. They didn't have guys who you could rely upon to find the voids in zones, or guys who really recognized post-snap coverage changes. Aaron Rodgers got frustrated with some of the receivers in Pittsburgh last year because of it, and then that's why the Steelers ultimately went out and brought 34-year-old Adam Thielen off the couch, because they needed a guy like that. Well, right. Pittman's that guy, but he's only 28, and he's 6'4", and he can win outside. And the nice thing about it for the Steelers is you put Metcalf outside on one side of the field, you put Pittman as your Z, and then you start moving him around and find the matchup. If the matchup is against a 5'10" corner outside, you leave him outside. But he's played a ton in the slot. So you like him better matched up inside against a smaller nickel or against a safety, you do that. And the Steelers still have to go out and get another wide receiver in the draft. But what they have in Pittman now is a true complement to their number one, and they've been missing that for years.
I want to ask you about another AFC team, which shockingly didn't make the postseason last year. That's the Kansas City Chiefs. They made some moves. Kenneth Walker is a good signing. They get Travis Kelce to come back for another year. And let's also not forget they acquired another first-round pick with the trade with the LA Rams. What's your take on what Kansas City's doing?
The Walker deal is a slam dunk. I mean, that is exactly what that offense needed. A closer, a finisher. I have a personal connection to Isaiah Pacheco, so I've loved following his career. But I think a bigger, stronger back with a little bit more of a between the tackles running style, like you see with Kenneth Walker, is something that they could use, because you get to the fourth quarter of games and you want a finisher. And I think he's that kind of guy. Getting Kelce back obviously helps them for a year. I think they'd be smart to go out and maybe pursue like a Dallas Goedert type tight end, because is Kelce going to be able to play 17 games at 37 years old? I think that they need a plan B there. The McDuffie trade, though, that kind of that I don't know what I think about that. They're not a deep secondary.
No.
And they made themselves a little thinner. And now, granted, they can go replenish that in the draft, but what you had an all-pro in McDuffie. And maybe they just didn't feel like they were going to be able to pay him, but now they have a big hole in that secondary.
What team out there maybe surprised you for lack of moves, or maybe the moves that they made and you're like, oh gosh, why would they do that? Or we thought that they were going to be more active when they weren't.
Yeah, you haven't heard much from the Bengals. I mean, they've got a lot of cap space. They added some edge rusher help. But, I don't think that they necessarily have really replaced Trey Hendrickson. I thought that he'd be off the board early in day one, but, he's kind of still on the board as the best available free agent out there. I don't know really where he's going to end up. I think Tampa would be a great spot for him. They need edge rushers, and they're a team, obviously, that, is known for its offensive identity. I think they could help themselves. The linebacker they picked up, the Bengals did from Seattle. I don't know how to pronounce his name, Boye Mafe, or I probably just butchered that. But he's a solid player. But I mean, he's not a replacement for Hendrickson. So it'll be interesting to see, what they do. I'll give you one team I really liked. I like what Carolina did. They added 2 impact players on defense. I mean, Jalen Phillips, I thought that was an overpay, man. They gave him $30 million a year. They gave Jalen Phillips $120 million over 4 years, but he's only 26 years old. And when he's healthy, he's shown himself to be an impact edge rusher. And then they went and got Devin Lloyd, who is, the number one linebacker on the free agent market. I think Carolina, that's a team, man. They get better every year. I mean, they're becoming sneaky good.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the trades that happened before free agency. I'm just curious of your take. Let's start off with the Buffalo Bills trading with the Chicago Bears for DJ Moore. A lot of Bills fans are furious after the Steelers traded with Pittman, which, by the way, was reportedly in the works for weeks. And they said, the Colts said is, if we can get Pierce locked up, we will work with you to get Michael Pittman to Pittsburgh. Meanwhile, the Bills had to give up a second-round pick for DJ Moore. What was your take on that move?
I don't blame Bills fans for being pissed. I mean, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore's averaged more yards per catch over the last 5 years, but Michael Pittman's stats and DJ Moore's stats are nearly identical. Pittman actually averages more receptions per year over that stretch than DJ Moore. So if you see those two as relatively equal wide receivers, then Buffalo paid a much greater price to acquire Moore. And I mean, that's something obviously that falls on the GM. You know, I mean, the ability to negotiate those types of deals is really, you know, your GM's responsibility. And I think Omar Khan so far in Pittsburgh has done a nice job with his trades of being able to get good value for what he sends out.
All right, let's talk Max Crosby. You talked about what the Ravens lost and what they gave up for Crosby. What do you think about his fit in Baltimore?
You know, I think his fit is great, but I put something up on my X page about this. The history of trades that have involved 2 first-round picks has not been good for the teams that have sent away the picks.
Yeah.
I mean, many of those deals have not worked out in favor of the team making the trade. And I just think with Baltimore, I mean, Crosby's going to be 29 years old. He's got a lot of good football left in him, but at the same time, you know, I mean, if he gets injured, if it doesn't work out, if he's not the missing piece on a defense that really wasn't very good and hasn't been very good the last couple of years, then man, that's a massive price to pay. They have really now emptied the cupboard in terms of the draft for the next couple of years. And it's a big gamble, man. It's a big gamble. And I just think when you're looking at trading 2 number ones, you got to get a guy in return that has absolutely like a slam dunk. You know, Indy, I mean, think of real quick. Indy, right, trades 2 firsts for Sauce Gardner. I mean, is that going to work out? I don't know. Is Green Bay, they traded 2 firsts for Micah Parsons. Is that going to work out? I mean, 2 firsts for Russell Wilson, 2 firsts for Deshaun Watson, 2 firsts for Jamal Adams, Laramie Tunsil, Khalil Mack. I mean, those are all good players, but they went to teams where they only had moderate success, and none of those teams were able to translate that into a Super Bowl title. So in the last 20 years, the only guy who got traded for 2 first-round picks who brought a Super Bowl title to their new team was Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. And Jalen Ramsey falls into that category too, I think.
With those Rams. Yep.
Yeah. But, you know, the Ravens lost a lot. They also lost safety Alohi Gilman. He goes to the Chiefs in free agency. But here's the question about the Ravens. And I want to talk about quarterbacks anyways that are still in the market. Lamar Jackson's contract remains a boon to this team. Sure, they can restructure Max Crosby's deal and get his cap hit down. And yes, they lost a lot of they freed up some space, obviously, with the players that are gone, whatever. They got to figure that out. He's due to count for over $70 million on the salary cap this year. And I know some Ravens fans living in Maryland, and they are scared to death that they're going to make him the highest paid player in the league. What do you think the Ravens are going to do with Lamar Jackson?
I don't know, because if you look at Lamar Jackson and who he is as a player, you really have to ask yourself, how many more years does he have left playing this style of football at an elite level? I don't know what the answer is. I mean, those who evaluate that team more closely than I do will probably be able to give you a better answer, but I don't think it's more than 2 or 3 years. I mean, Lamar Jackson gets into his 30s. Can he still play the same style of football that he's playing today? I question whether he can. And then what? Can you make him a pocket passer? So far, the answer has been no.
Right. He doesn't have an agent. And I think this is really interesting because there have been a lot of people that have been in these conversations between organizations, agents, players. They always say the agent is like the buffer, that the organization says, hey, we've got some concerns that Lamar might not be able to be Lamar in a couple years. But with no agent, they're having to say to Lamar, we've got some concerns that you might not be the same guy in a couple years. How big of a deal is that, do you think?
I think it's a big deal. I mean, come on, we're human beings. Think of any interaction in which you have legitimate concerns about someone or something. If you can have a mediator there, it softens the blow. If I got to say it to your face, particularly in a boss employee situation where, like in the NFL, the employee has a lot of the power there. How does that not become contentious? Or it takes big people to not hold a grudge.
Right.
And so, I'll be that's going to be fascinating to see all that play out. I don't think there's an easy answer there.
No, I don't either. And so I think you also look at quarterbacks around the league. Arizona, I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do. Jacoby Brissett's supposed to be back as their starter. His name's slipping. Gardner Minshew is going there. Kyler Murray is still on the open market. There are some other quarterbacks. Geno Smith might have a reunion with the Jets. There's some options out there, Coach. What do you think is going to happen with all the quarterbacks that are still remaining? Let's start with Kyler Murray.
So I believe this is true. I don't think he gets officially released until tomorrow.
Correct.
Which is when so right. So, I mean, you're not hearing any Kyler Murray news because I think technically it would be tampering because he hasn't yet been released. I think he winds up in Minnesota. I think that makes too much sense for both parties. You look at like what Kevin O'Connell's done in recent years. I mean, transforming Sam Darnold, helping to transform Daniel Jones, at least for a short period of time. I mean, you have the opportunity to go play for a guy up there who has a track record of being able to rejuvenate the careers of veteran quarterbacks. And if you're Kyler Murray, why would you not want that? And if you're the Vikings, why would you not want the opportunity to see what you got in Kyler Murray, at least for a year? And again, at a veteran minimum, so at a very low cost. I think in Arizona, you're planning for Manning. I just feel that just feels like a soft tank. You're going with Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew as your quarterbacks in the NFC West, where you play San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams. That's an 0-6. If they go 1-5 in the division, Mike LaFleur, they should put his name in the rafters. Because
oh my gosh,
they're a bad football team with a bad quarterback situation in the best division in football.
Yeah, it's crazy, and free agency is just getting started. It's only been 24 hours, not even 24 hours since the legal tampering window opened. Coach, what else do you got for me? Empty the notebook.
Well, there's still some big names out there. It'll be interesting. Again, I brought up Hendrickson. I think he's probably the marquee name right now that people want to see. Where does he wind up? I think Jaquan Brisker, the safety from the Bears, is a really good football player. Tariq Woolen, the corner from Seattle, will be interesting to see where he winds up. Romeo, is it Dubes or Dobbs? How do you say Romeo Dobbs' name?
But anyway. I think it's Dobbs.
Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's a good football player. Again, I'm really interested in Leo Chenal, the linebacker from Kansas City. I think he's a really good sideline to sideline off ball backer. He'd be an interesting fit. So yeah, big names, Joey Bosa, that's another big name that's out there. Big names on the market. It'll be interesting to see where some of those guys go. And it'll be interesting to see how some of these teams, the model plays out. Like take Tennessee. They got a ton of money. Third most cap space of any team. It's like they're putting some weird conglomerate of Jets and Giants together, right? You've got Robert Saleh, the old Jets head coach. You got Brian Daboll, the old Giants head coach, as the OC. They went out and signed Jermaine Johnson from the Jets, Wan'Dale Robinson from the Giants, Cordell Flott, John Franklin Myers. Like all their signings yesterday were ex-Jets or ex-Giants. I don't know, man. Can two terrible franchises morph together to create a good franchise? I don't know.
I don't know, man. That gives me Blues Brothers vibes. We're getting the band back together, man. Like, do you want to get that?
At least the Blues Brothers was a good band.
Yeah, that is true. So free agency again is just getting underway, and this is when, for me, it is really great to see how teams approach free agency because that will dictate what they do in the NFL draft. So trying to fill needs is going to change everything. That's why mock drafts before free agency are literally comical, because you have no idea what they're going to do. You look at the Steelers, by getting Michael Pittman, that might move wide receiver down a little bit on their board in the draft. Who knows? I think we got some trades still coming up, though. Coach, I heard Patrick Queen might be on the chopping block going to Dallas. What do you think about that?
I mean, that's been the rumor now for the last couple of weeks since the combine. So, yeah, we'll see how that plays out. If the Steelers send Patrick Queen out, then they need, obviously, a linebacker in return. So I'm not sure who fits there. You got to think, like, I love Leo Chenal of Kansas City, but I think he's more of an off-ball guy, whereas the Steelers would need a more of a, your strong side backer if they move Queen out. So, and there's always stuff that like we don't see coming. Every year there's like one where it's like 2 hours from now we're going to go, oh, yeah, and everybody's chat rooms light up.
Absolutely. So, all right, Coach, we want to get this out as soon as possible. So I appreciate your time. What's coming up on the call sheet this week?
A busy week. I mean, obviously we're recapping all of free agency. And we're, kind of on Wednesday's show, take a deeper dive into, how it all works, really like the free agent process, through agents, through signings, the communication, all the behind the scenes stuff. I've gathered some pretty good intel between the combine and some of the agents I've been able to talk to. So we'll kind of pull the curtain back a little bit on the process.
Nice. Find that wherever you get your podcast by searching the Call Sheet Daily. You can also check out his work at SteelCurtainNetwork.com. I had an article run today at 9:30 about Michael Pittman and his fit with the Steelers. Go check that out. Coach, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk next week.